for those who have not heard me or cannot hear me or choose not to hear me, I will say it again. I started this legal action purely to pay for the advice from the King's Counsel, who is looking at areas we can challenge the gun laws in the courts. That's what is on my GoFundMe. That was my promise to you from the start, because that's all I thought I could achieve. Legal bills are very expensive for anyone who's had to navigate the justice system in our country. That is a barrier to entry, and I don't like it. That's not how democracy and the justice system should work, but that's how it works in this country. You do need to have funds behind you to take anything to court. So when I started this battle back in January, and those of you who've been following me would know I foregoed running in the WA state election to take on this challenge, because you cannot run for office if you are challenging the laws written by the government that you are trying to be a part of. That's not how it works. So I chose to go down the legal action route, and I set the goal to pay for the King's Counsel to provide the letter of opinion, which is the only opinion that counts at the moment. Mine doesn't even count. It's the letter of opinion from this King's Counsel that is working on the letter as we speak. That's what I set out to do back in January this year. And that is what is stated on my GoFundMe very clearly. Because of the state election, and I must say I only made the target to pay for that first piece of work on election night. I know a lot of people were waiting off, holding off, praying for a miracle and an election result that would give us balance of power in the upper house, or some politicians that are more sympathetic to our cause. We know now that that has not happened in WA, unfortunately, and we can all sit here and complain and think about why that is, but what's done is done. We have to move forward. So I'm so glad that I made that risky decision back in January to take on the battle of raising enough funds to get that important piece of advice. I still can't believe that no one else went out and got it. Everyone has an opinion, like I've said, but the legal system is sitting there waiting to help if they are asked. So that's what I was doing. That's what I've done. And I was relieved to make the target late on election night, back on the 8th of March. So after I exceeded the target more than I could ever dreamed of, and thank you. I know people did this because we are put in such a desperate situation. A lot of people spent so much time, energy, money on the state election and the political battle to get nothing out of it. I know the Nationals have picked up a few more seats in the lower house too, but it doesn't matter when the red wave is still there and they don't have any control in the upper house. So I understand that people are very upset about that. And I know that's probably the main reason why a lot of you who were not even looking at my work or thinking or believing some of the things that have been said about what I do and what I'm trying to achieve, I understand that that's the only thing that pushed you over the line, is because you feel like you're pushed up against the wall and this is the only hope you have. So thank you for throwing your support behind me and my team and my work. This has paved the way for me to sign a contract with my legal team to pay for the next part of this battle. It is no longer just the letter of opinion that I am paying for. I have already signed a contract saying that I will be paying for whatever else I need to fight this, and I have a war chest sitting there ready to go as soon as I get the letter of opinion, and we can work out a strategy on where we can fight this, where our best chance of success is. So for those who haven't heard me or have chosen not to hear me because you have your own agenda to push, I am committed to future legal action challenges. It is not just a letter of opinion. I hope everyone understands what I'm saying there, as that's been the source of frustration and anxiety for me this week. So that's a bit of a recap on where I'm at with that. Yes, the King's Counsel, he is working on this letter of opinion right now. I did give him the deadline of the 24th of March. And because of the number of emails I've received, hundreds and hundreds of emails and messages. I still have not gotten back to all of you. I apologize. I did some work on them all day Friday and again today, and I have tried to go through my Facebook inbox, and I'm still not on top of that. I apologize. I'm one person. I'm not an organization. I don't have a team of people helping me. I'm doing this part of it myself while my legal team work on the important legal advice. But because of all the information that you have sent me, there was quite a few bits of information that helped me inform the King's Counsel, because he's come back to me with a few questions that I didn't have the answer to off the top of my head. And it was because of your information and evidence that allowed me to pass that directly to my legal team and the KC. And unfortunately, that has added a little bit to his workload, but I want to get the letter of opinion to be as detailed as possible. I want him to have as much information as possible. So I've passed that on to him. That has increased his workload a little bit. Sorry about that. But it's important to get this right because I've paid for it and we want the advice to be as thorough and detailed as possible. I have passed that over to him and my team who are working on it now. They're working on the weekend. Thank you, team. But it's so important because I know we are all up against this deadline. The 31st of March is when the prohibited firearms that were banned in the regulations on the 23rd of December. What a great Christmas present from the state government. And I've heard so many stories from people who went out and purchased a push button release firearm or a lever action firearm. Some of these were the first guns that people had bought. They'd saved up their money. I remember reading a story today about a young gentleman who saved up all his money to buy a push button release firearm to help his father on his farm, especially with kangaroos, which are a huge problem in the southwest of WA. And he's only been told he has to give it back without any compensation. It broke my heart when I read that letter. So I know we are up against a 31st of March deadline in relation to the prohibited firearms. I understand that, and I apologise that we are in this situation to begin with. We are only in this situation because I am one person who went down the legal action route when no one else wanted to touch it. None of the shooting organisations did. I know a lot of them have their own lawyers that they've been speaking to, but none of them paid for this letter of opinion, which outlines where we can challenge the laws. I don't know why they didn't. I'm not here to point fingers or say you shouldn't have thrown all your eggs in one basket. And it's sort of a battlefield. You have to have a strategy, but we are in this position now. It took me so long to raise enough money. I'm sorry I couldn't pay for it myself. I would give my firstborn son if it took that. Mr. Liberty's getting mad at me for saying that, but I would do everything I can to help the people if I could. And I couldn't. I needed to crowdfund for this. So that's why the timeline is so tight. It took me that time as an individual without the support of shooting organisations. And I did ask. I have all the docs where I asked them for support and they turned me away. So we're in this position because none of the people with big money wanted to support this fight for whatever reason. That's fine. That's their prerogative. My prerogative now is to get this advice as soon as possible and develop a strategy with my lawyers on what we can challenge first. And of course, the big one is the prohibited firearms that are due to be banned on the 31st of March. I can say that there are emergency options available to go to court on these kinds of things. That is something that has been relayed to me. I'm waiting for the advice before we can act. So the timeline at the moment is still to get the advice sometime tomorrow. I know my main lawyer is in court Monday because lawyers have other cases too. No one is able to stop everything and just work solely on this case, but they have dedicated as much time as they can, including the weekends, to this fight. So I will be getting that advice tomorrow at some stage. I will be taking the time to sit down and read over it because I imagine it will be quite an extensive document. These are the biggest regulations and legislation on the books in WA. This is why it's taken the KC so long to write his letter, along with all the information I've funneled to them from you, the people who have shared information that I wasn't aware of or I hadn't heard of before. Thank you for providing that to me. That has helped me immensely because I don't proclaim to know everything. I have history working in this field for 15 years, but I still don't know everything. Nobody does. So if it wasn't for you sharing that information, I wouldn't be able to provide you the best of the best of the best. So, timeline, I know everybody's nervous. We'll be working out the strategy, taking that time. I am booked in to see the lawyers and my KC on the Wednesday because we are going to all take a day to look over it and develop a strategy. I will be making phone calls tomorrow and Tuesday because I need to talk to people about potentially being litigants for the next part of the action, including class action. That's another thing I will have all the details about on Monday tomorrow when I receive the letter of opinion. So I will be busy making sure I have all my ducks in a row, and happy duck hunting season to South Oz. That started this weekend and Victoria was last weekend. So happy duck hunting season to all those who participate. I've got my hunter gatherer shirt on tonight from my mate Dan from Eureka Outdoors. Thanks, Dan. So yes, timeline, getting the advice tomorrow. I will be on the phone tomorrow and Tuesday. If you have emailed me and you're in a position where you're affected by either the prohibited firearms, the gun limits, the storage requirements, all of these things, I might be calling you. I might be calling on you to help me with the next part of this challenge, and that is so important. So I believe I will be in a position on Wednesday to share with you publicly what we're doing. I will be making the phone calls Monday and Tuesday in anticipation for the next steps and lining that all up ready to go, particularly for emergency court action. That I have signed a contract to pay for. So, for those of you falsely accusing me and spreading disinformation about the fact that she's only paying for the letter of opinion, I do not know how many times I have had to say this. I said it last week. I said it back on the 10th of March after I saw my lawyers. I am not just doing a letter of opinion, which, by the way, is a very important part of this battle. You haven't paid for it either, so at least I'm doing that. But for those of you accusing me of only doing one part of this fight, go away. Bother someone else with your nonsense. I don't want to hear it. I've got too much of an important fight and too much to work on without having to deal with that crap. So this is the timeline. I again apologize that we're in this situation. It is getting so close to the wire. People are very upset. I know I've heard people say if I don't comply, they will use it as an excuse to take away or just bar me from a firearms license for life. I've already had this conversation multiple times with my legal team saying this is how people feel. And I know there is a convention. There is a convention that the laws have been brought in so late. We have not been given enough time to comply. Surely the police will not be going door to door on the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, to prosecute these laws that we have not been given enough time to comply with. I am talking to my lawyers about that every day. I will have more advice. So please, for those of you following this, Wednesday is when I will be able to go public with what we are doing, because I would have lined up what we're doing and I'll be doing that work in the next 3 days. So that's where we're at now. I will just turn to my comments. I hope that's answered a lot of your questions. I know everybody's very nervous. And again, I apologize for how late we are to the table on this, but I'm one person. I couldn't do any more than I have. So let me just have a look. Beam me up, Scotty. Just gave me $20. Grab yourself a drink, Kate. Thanks for your support. Thanks, beam me up, Scotty. I have some Prosecco Rosé from the Veneto region in Italy. That's where I'm from. So cheers. Thanks, Scotty. Mr. Serioso just gave $20. Hello, my regular listener now, Mr. Serioso. And one for your tattoo. Looks like he needs cheering up. Yes, my little man. What side am I on this side? He's actually from one of my favorite bands called the Menzingers. They're from Philly, over in America, and they're a really great band. And sometimes this is how I was feeling after that hit piece came out about me the other week from the shooting media establishment. I did feel a bit like this. So thank you for your $20. Okay, I am going to get to some legal action questions. Okay, let's have a look. So Mr. Bullet 1952, will we hear from the KC tomorrow? So I am due to get the advice tomorrow at some stage. It's going to be a very big document. I've already been told that it's not a quick read and then off we go. It's going to take time for me to read and for my legal team to read too, because the KC has been the one authoring this in his chambers, receiving advice and emails from me and my lawyer and I. So I get that tomorrow. We need a bit of time. I'm anxious too. I'm a journalist. I have deadlines that I need to get the news out as soon as it's there. My lawyer gave me a bit of a telling off on Friday, saying it doesn't work like that in the justice system, Kate. The wheels of justice can turn slowly. So I don't have time for them to turn slowly, but I understand they have their other court commitments too. There's a lot going on in WA, a lot of other legal challenges outside of just firearms. So get the advice tomorrow for me to digest, my legal team to digest. We need to take that 24 hours to go through it thoroughly. And that's when I'll be going back to all those emails you've sent me. And I might be contacting you to see if you can help with emergency court orders and preparing for the next step. So Wednesday, I'll be putting out a video Wednesday night to tell you what we're doing. Keeping in mind also, I know one of my criticisms has been you don't show your cards. If she just releases the advice publicly, the Labor government will know what to do to challenge it. So, of course, I have to be very careful in how I release this advice. That is something that I need that time to develop with my lawyer too. That's why I will be making these private phone calls between those of you who have contacted me. And if you want me to contact you about your situation, please feel free to email me, ladyliberty.walegal@gmail.com. I nearly got on top of the emails today, but I didn't quite get there. I'm sorry. There's been quite a few that I have to get back to. So it's been quite a lot of work. So that's the timeline, Mr. Bullet 1952. Ashley Moore, according to a source whose name I won't mention, a huge number of the things in the new regs won't work and should be chucked out because the police don't have the numbers to enforce the new regs. Interesting. And this is what I alluded to before, is do we have to prepare, and I've asked my legal team this too, do we have to prepare if we haven't got our storage requirements up to the new requirements by April 1, if we're still not sure if we should hand back our push button or lever actions because we're not getting compensated. And there's a clause in the Australian Constitution that says if the state confiscates private property, they must pay fair value for, and that's something my KC is looking at right now. This is why I'm talking about emergency injunctions. So are the police going to come door to door on April 1? And I've had nightmares about this. It's kept me up at night. And because I've come from fascist Italy, and I remember my grandfather telling some terrifying stories about what happened in his village. We don't want Australia to go down that path, or WA to be in that situation where the police are being used against peaceful people who are suddenly criminals on April 1 because the government of the day has changed the laws to make it so bloody hard to comply that they can't comply, not to mention the fair and reasonable test. Are these laws even fair and reasonable? It's terrifying to think, and we can't predict the future. We can only operate in the present. We have to wait for this legal advice, and as soon as I get that, we will know what we can do to put a stopgap to this and then challenge it to its full capacity. So James Goff, I've got 7 days to hand in my 22 mag. I definitely don't know what to do. I received a letter back. I'm told if I don't comply and hand in my 22 mag on the 31st, that will be deemed an unfit person to hold a license and have the rest of my firearms confiscated. Like I said, I had this conversation the other day with my legal team. This is what we're terrified about. I will put that question to my legal team, and we just don't know because, like I said in my last live stream, the conventions of the political process in WA and the manners on how democracy used to work just have not been followed for the last 4 years, and we can't guarantee that they will be followed into the future. It's terrifying to think that we're in this situation, James. I feel so, my heart goes out to you. I will bring you the information and advice as soon as I can. I'm sorry I don't have it now. I wish I could be the judge and judicator of this whole thing and just make it all go away by banging the gavel, but I'm not. So, John Davey is the King's Counsel working for the Imperial Crown or the Australian Gov Corporation, I think he means. So King's Counsel is one of the highest lawyers in the land they're appointed. It used to be the Queen's Counsel, for those who remember Queen Elizabeth II. So here's the King's Counsel. It's a title given to lawyers who have been very esteemed in their work. He's the only KC, by the way, I mentioned this last week, who has successfully prosecuted a class action in WA. And this is one of the reasons I hired him too, because this was something that was discussed at the outset, is the potential for this to be bigger than Ben-Hur because of the ramifications of how many people these laws have affected. And I have just been blown away by the number of people who have contacted me sharing their deeply personal stories. And I think this is something that has really been lost in the media and the debate. The fact that firearms are not just a tool to people, they have historical value, they have personal value. I know my dad's got 2 firearms that I personally can't wait to get when he passes away, to keep to shoot with my family, because that's what our culture is. So the cultural effect that these laws will have on society, and these are the stories that I want to get out there. And going forward, once the legal action battle keeps commencing, I would love to interview some of you. So if you want to share your story about the other side of the story, it's just not reported. We don't hear these stories, and this is one of the biggest detriments to our community, is we have not done enough to educate our fellow Australians who might not be interested in firearms, and that's fine, might never have shot a gun before in their life, and that's also fine. But when they don't understand our community, our activities, our sport, the culture of it, and all the information they get is from the media that is so slanted against us, or from movies, it's just, we need to do a better job at educating our fellow Australians about not to be scared of us. And I was so pleased, one of the emails I received was from a gentleman who'd taken hundreds of people out shooting shotgun, clay target shooting, which is a really great first way to introduce people to the sport. And he just said it changed so many people's minds after they'd had that one experience, one day at the range. And then they kept harassing him saying, when can I come out again? And these are people who were either agnostic or anti before they had that day at the range. So this is something that I think we need to do a bit more work on. And this is why I do what I do publicly, to change the perceptions of us and our community. Mr. Bullet 1952, not a problem, Kate. I'll wait. Thank you. Yes, so just Mr. Liberty's recommended I say, so I'll keep doing my Sunday live streams, but Wednesday is probably when I'll do either a video update or I'll do a live Q&A. It depends what my lawyers say. And Mr. Bullet 1952 again has said, if the legal advice is good, do not enter into discussions with the WA government. Yes, and this is why I need to have the time to have my lawyers have the time to look over it, have me look over it, as well as a journalist and an advocate and someone who is responsible to the people, especially everyone who's donated. I cannot thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough. So I will be keeping that in mind. I wish I could just release the docs. Finally, the JFK files have been released, or most of them. I wish I could have more about transparent journalism. Show me the docs, show me the sealed documents from Port Arthur. Just let the people know and decide. But when you're entering into legal challenges and looking at which court to challenge things in and what to do, I can't be as open as I would want to be, but it's in the best interest of getting a win. And I hope people understand that. I do not want to hide anything from anyone, because I am accountable to you who have supported me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.